Hi, folks. We are just waiting for a few people to join, so we're gonna just give it a few minutes while there's more and more people joining. But welcome to everyone who's here so far. My name is Kevin, and we have Chris here as well. I'm sure there's people here we've probably spoken to already. But yeah, great to have you guys here on our webinar today.
Whilst we're waiting for people to join, I guess just a little bit of housekeeping. If you'd like to ask a question at any point, then we're not kind of strict about it. Feel free to either drop it in the Q&A or in the chat, and we will, if we think that it's something that would be good to address to the whole group, then we will address it. If not, one of us will answer in the chat. We'll also save a bit of time at the end as well for a Q&A, kind of a more formal Q&A session. So if you'd rather hold your question till the end, that's fine. But if you want to drop it in as we're going, then that's absolutely fine too.
Super. Now we'll just give it probably one more minute while there's people joining. This is being recorded as well, so afterwards we'll be able to send out recording to you guys, and you'll all be able to get this. But we may as well kick off in a minute now when there's people and enough people joining. We normally wait till 2 minutes past and then people come in. So we're at 2 minutes past now, so may as well get going. So just to start today, guys, I'm going to share my screen of a couple of slides to walk through, and then we're going to do a live demo, which Chris is going to run today. So you should be able to see my screen now. We're looking at just a short couple of slides here. So look, this is our contact details, myself and Chris. So we'll share this with you afterwards as well, so you have our details to book in, and we can do some more kind of one-to-one meetings in the future. But just today, we only have 5 or 6 slides to walk through and then into our demo. So definitely not a death by PowerPoint or anything like that today. You all get to see the actual solution today. But today we're going to be really focusing on how UK universities are using AI to transform governance and administration. So we work with an awful lot of different education organizations in the UK and Ireland and the US. And the idea is that we understand the amount of meetings that you are running within the business side of your organizations and across the whole organizations. And it is one of the things that we see is, I suppose, one of the main waste in an organization is the amount of meetings that are being run and the administration around that. So just a couple of stats that we have here. So that, around 60% of meetings start without agendas, without plan or without purpose. And a lot of people, we'll see here, 92% of people admit to multitasking during their meetings. But one of the kind of key things then is that a lot of meetings finish without having actions being taken and maybe decisions being logged and things like that. So this is really why we created Decisions in the first place. Decisions has been around for a long time. It's been around actually even longer than Microsoft Teams. We now obviously are partnered with Microsoft, are integrated very closely with Microsoft, but we were around because there's been a lot more meetings before there was even Microsoft Teams. So Decisions has been used for a long time. So this was why Decisions was, firstly created, and since then it's really grown into the solution that it is now, and especially within education. So just to have a kind of little bit of a look on why education trusts Decisions so much. I'm sure there's a lot of organizations that you recognize there. One of the big ones that we've touched on in the past a lot is JISC, who've been using Decisions for over a year now. But there's also a lot of different organizations that you'd recognize there. But the reason that Decisions is trusted across the education sector is that we have a proven track record now. So we've been growing every single month, especially in the education and public sector. We have now a very close collaboration with JISC. So we're going to touch on that a little bit later on actually how JISC have been using Decisions, particularly on the AI side of things, and how it's been comparing with their use of Copilot, for example, which they use alongside that. We, as I mentioned before, are partnered with Microsoft. So Decisions is built on the Microsoft Graph API or on the Microsoft 365, which means that all of the data that you use within Decisions is going to be stored within your own Microsoft tenant. So Decisions uses SharePoint or OneDrive as the storage locations. And you'll see as we go through the demo later how Decisions actually integrates right across your full Microsoft stack as well, making it extremely secure, and it doesn't even really change the way you're using your Microsoft tools already. We are seeing an absolute huge admin time saving for SLT meeting and governance meeting in specific. We know the amount of administration that goes, through the full meeting processes, particularly in meetings like governance meeting, committee meeting, board meetings, where you're building agendas, trying to get documents from people, building board packs or meeting books and things like that. And the amount of time that admins are actually taking to do all this around meetings, Decisions is saving an enormous amount of time across all those different meetings. And then the last point, again, really just to touch on why Decisions is being used in such kind of large organizations, public sector organizations, and education, is that we have enterprise grade security and compliance. So it's for sensitive and high stakes governance meetings and processes, and we follow your Microsoft permissions. So once you're using Microsoft, you're going to be very happy with the permissions that Decisions uses. So we touched on how Decisions is connected with JISC. So you'll see here a quote from James, who is the Deputy Director of Workplace IT in JISC. They have been using Decisions now for the past year and actually using it alongside Copilot to test out both. I'm sure a lot of people here are using Copilot as well. But the quote from James is that, Decisions, especially the AI recaps, it captures more of the essence and the strategy and the intent of the meetings that they're running. It has more structured recaps, which you can actually then edit in place and don't include the side conversations. I'm sure you've all been in meetings where the first 5 or 10 minutes is how's the weather where you are, or what did you do for the weekend and things like that. The Decisions AI is built to understand what is relevant to the meeting and make sure that the recaps and the meeting minutes that you create is actually connected back to the actual meeting. So it doesn't have the first few paragraphs about how it's sunny in Bournemouth or whatever it might be where Chris is. It's really specific to what the meeting is supposed to be about. So just to connect with this, with JISC, they mentioned that after trying Decisions and Copilot side by side, they decided to roll out Decisions company-wide. So the main reason for that was that there was a lot more core features as well with Decisions, not just the meeting recaps. They were using the full formal meeting minutes from Decisions, which merged into the Microsoft Word in the JISC company branding. So that's something that when you become a customer Decisions, you get branded templates and you can get full meeting minutes on that. As we mentioned before, it doesn't automatically send out recaps. It can actually be edited in place and then send to whoever needs to get the recap as well. They were using the agenda building and the collaboration functions of Decisions. So they needed a bit more formal agenda building. They wanted to have document sharing and collaboration on that as well. They are also using, as I mentioned before, the board pack creation within Decisions. So we call it a meeting book because we see that it's used across every type of meeting, not just board meetings. But a lot of people will call this a board pack, where it's a PDF with all the documents in one place. They're also using the action tracking function within Decisions. So what's important about Decisions is that everything that you do, as I mentioned, is stored within Microsoft. So when an action is made within Decisions, it's connected automatically with Microsoft Planner, which Copilot actually doesn't do. So it's a lot more simple to go and actually find every action from the meeting or past meetings connected back to a team. And then as well as that, they were using the decision list, which is the log book of every decision that's been made. So they can actually go back and see 6 months ago, we decided on X, Y, Z. They can see exactly that with links back to the meeting minutes and the agenda item where that was made. Okay, and then one last quote from James on that as well is that he said that he still gets the assurance of all the Microsoft security that they have and the data sovereignty, plus the extra capabilities that Decisions had. Okay, so really great business case from Copilot there. And we actually can share a kind of more in-depth one on that as well. So we'll send it into the chat later on. Oh, I think Chris has actually just popped in there. He one step ahead of me there.
Yeah, just popped it in the chat there if you want to take a look.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, good stuff. Okay, so one of the things that we have really found within governance and administration in education is why people are using Decisions so much is that firstly, people are looking for technology that's really simple to adopt and really simple to use. So Decisions, as we're going to see in the demo, is just going to sit in with the way you're working already within Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Word, Planner, all these different tools that you have already. So it is extremely simple to adopt and get people up and running. There's obviously been, a massive administrative burden across people who have to take meeting minutes, who have to create these meeting books, build on the agendas and everything like that. Decisions solves all of that. So one of the biggest things that we have found is that, especially for those who are creating meeting minutes, it's going to save roughly 90% of the time that you're creating the meeting minutes, leaving you to do a lot of the other work that you need to do. And lastly, is the data security. So this is something that we're going to touch on a lot, and making sure that, it's very clear that the data that you use in Decisions stays within your Microsoft environment. So you will have heard of different apps, let's say, for example, Otter AI or Read AI or any of those third-party apps where a bot will join your call. Those apps in a lot of large organizations are completely banned now, because what happens when a bot joins your call, it actually means that it's taking your information outside of your Microsoft environment, processing it in their own data centers and sending it back. So Decisions doesn't do any of that. It uses the Microsoft transcription, and everything stays within your own Microsoft environment. Lovely stuff. So we mentioned earlier that Decisions integrate right across your whole Microsoft stack. And that's everything from when you're creating your meetings. It's going to be in Outlook and Microsoft Teams. The storage location is SharePoint and OneDrive. But we're going to see as we go through how we can use things like PowerPoint to create documents, Microsoft Word for meeting minutes and board packs, and then even things like Excel and Planner for our post-meeting actions and everything like that. So it really is just integrated across your Microsoft stack, but really meeting focused. So everything for your meetings, how we can tie together all of the different apps that you have within Microsoft to make sure you have the best meetings possible. And our last slide before we go into our live demo is just to look at how Decisions can be used across every single type of meeting that you have. So from board meetings and committee meetings, you might need something, like voting, for example, electronic signature. You might need to restrict files across certain meetings. You might need very formal meeting minutes and those more formal board and committee meetings. And then it goes all the way down to one-to-ones and just simple catch-ups where you might just need a quick AI agenda. You just say what the meeting is about, and it's going to pull an agenda for you. You might just want a quick recap after the meeting, or you might need your own private notes in that as well. So it's everything that you might imagine that you would need in a meeting across all the different levels of meetings. You can see the different kind of features that are there. Okay, I'm going to hand it over now to Chris, who's going to do the live demo. Keep the questions coming in the either chat or the Q&A. I'll be looking at that now as well. And if there's anything that I think need to jump in and ask Chris to show, I'll make sure to do that, or else I'll answer it in the chat as well.
Thanks, Kevin. So yeah, we're going to jump into kind of showing you how Decisions works. I think there's probably it already seems from the chat that there's a lot of interest in the difference between Copilot and Decisions, and it's a conversation that we're having a lot at the moment. Is what do I use Decisions or Copilot? I think the answer is different tools for different people within the university, and some people will have both. We also use Copilot internally here at Decisions, and Copilot is obviously a fantastic tool. It's a horizontal tool that gives you the ability to be able to do lots of things across your Microsoft suite, whereas Decisions is a vertical based on just meetings, and it's a specialist meetings AI tool. Hopefully you will, ideally you've all used Copilot before now, or you've trialed it, and you'll now get to see what decisions looks like, and you can make those comparisons yourself and come to your own conclusions. So I'm just going to bring my screen into view here. Kevin, are you able to see my screen right now, or can you bring it into view for me?
It has not come up just yet.
I'm going to try to reshare. Folks, Teams have just updated the webinar experience for. There we go.
There. Oh, I locked you off again. Sorry.
There we go. Is that on? Fantastic. So yeah, Teams have just updated the kind of way that you can run webinars, and we didn't realize that until 5 minutes before, so we had to frantically quickly learn what was going on. But hopefully you can all see my screen now. So you see that I'm sharing Teams. Most people use decisions within Teams. You don't have to. We find that it works in the most streamlined way within Teams, but there is a decisions app that you can use. You can also use it in a browser, but I'd say most organizers for meetings will use it within Teams. Most people who are joining meetings, particularly people like trustees, governors, will actually often view agendas and board packs and minutes within their default browser, Edge, Chrome, but most organizers use it within Teams. What we're going to do for the purposes of this is actually walk through how you would run a meeting lifecycle for an audit and risk committee meeting. Kevin showed you that really great slide that shows you what you can use decisions for. You can use decisions for your most senior meetings, your board meetings, governance meetings, all the way down to one-to-ones. But we're going to focus on really that top level of governance and SLT, because you then get to see a lot more about what decisions can do. But you can kind of pick and choose what you use from decisions. You don't have to use it in the way that I'm going to use it right now, but we'll focus on that more formal life cycle. So let's go through and look at how you would build out an audit and risk committee agenda. We're going to turn it into a board pack. We're going to run the meeting. I'm going to show you how you track actions and decisions in that meeting, and then how you run the minutes using AI at the end. So you'll see as I'm going through this that, and I suppose the kind of reality is that 90% of what you need to run your board committee meetings, governance meetings at a university is already there in Microsoft. A lot of universities use board portals, but actually you're doubling up on a lot of what can be done with Microsoft itself. 90% of it is there. I guess what Decisions is doing is putting that final 10% in, which is gluing all of those Microsoft tools that you've already got together and augmenting it with AI to make it more streamlined. So you'll see how we're going to use PDFs, Word documents, Excel, Planner, and how all of that ties together with Teams channels, which of course are all Microsoft tools that you've already got. So let's imagine that we're organizing our audit and risk committee meeting. Now, the first thing that you're going to do is create an agenda. You can either build an agenda from scratch. You can actually use AI to build the agenda for you. So you can pop in a prompt like build me a agenda for an audit and risk committee meeting. However, most of the time, you've probably already got that meeting agenda, or the administrator does, as a Word document or a PDF, and you can actually use the agenda assistant to upload that in the first time you build that agenda. You can then save that agenda as a template. So you only need to really use this once for the first time. And I can then click on use a template, and then I would select the template of the meeting that I'm having. So if it's HR, they might pull up this HR disciplinary meeting. If it's the audit and risk committee, I can just click on this. It's going to show me a template here, a kind of a preview. I can click apply. And now it's going to ask me where I want to save my agenda. Now we save into either OneDrive or Teams channels. The benefit of using a Teams channel is that you only put into a Teams channel the people who attend that meeting. So it gives it a privacy wrapper around that meeting, because only the members of that Teams channel are able to view the documents, view the agendas, view the pre-reads, view the minutes. So you're putting that security privacy wrapper around the meeting already. So what you would do is you would select the Teams channel that's applicable for this meeting. So in this case, it's our Audit and Risk Committee. So I'm going to click Next. I can now go and build this agenda knowing that the only people who are going to be able to view these documents are the people who are members of this Teams channel. Now, what if you have guest attendees, maybe guest presenters for certain agenda points? We'll come on to that in just a minute, and we'll show you how you can manage that. So now I've got my agenda here as a draft. So right now, nobody can see this. And as an administrator, I'm now able to come in and I'm able to edit each of these agenda items. So for example, agenda point number 2 is to review the minutes of the previous meeting. So if I click on the pencil here, we can now edit this title. We can edit the amount of time. So maybe actually we only need 5 minutes to review the minutes. We can add documents in. It's also recognized that I've used the word minutes in the title here. So it's asking me, do you want to link the minutes or recap from a previous meeting? So I can click on select and I can actually find the minutes from the previous meeting and it will pull it directly in. Those would be the minutes from the last meeting that I had in this Teams channel. Or you can upload files in here. So I could go to upload file and let's pop in an example minutes in there. We can also assign out agenda items as well. So this is probably going to be the meeting chair who's going to be reviewing the previous minutes and officially signing those off. So I can click here and let's make Kevin the meeting chair and then save that. So I've added my minutes in, changed the time limit and added Kevin as the presenter for that. I then repeat this process. So you've probably got a process at the moment where the administrator who sets up this meeting will be sent the different documents that they need. You can carry on using that process, or you can work in quite a collaborative way if you wanted to as well. So for example, if I add in as a presenter, for example, my colleague Olivia onto this agenda point, Olivia is now going to be notified that she is the agenda point owner for the internal audit progress report. She can then come in and edit this one agenda point that she's now the owner of. So she can come in, upload into here, and she can upload her audit progress report and add that in. So you've got two choices there, right? You can either work in a collaborative way where people are uploading their pre-reads and their documents to the agenda themselves, or you have a central administrator who is going and taking those reports and adding them in.
We've seen as well, Chris, with those guest presenters that because they're only added in for agenda item 3, they don't see any of the other agenda items. So for security and compliance, it's been massive for education, specifically in governance, because you have a lot of people who come on for one agenda item and then you don't see, you know, the meeting minutes from the previous call or the risk management update or whatever it might be as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great example actually with Olivia here, right? So Olivia is not on the invite, but she is able to just see agenda point number 3. So really great for those guest presenters. If you want to go a step further in terms of privacy and locking down what you want people to see, you can also restrict access on a document level as well. So if I click on the little arrow there and click on restrict access, maybe I don't want Will, who's a member of this Teams channel, to actually see that document, so I can revoke the access and press apply. So now you can see it says restricted on it. So you can revoke the access from various people as well. So on a macro and a micro level, you're able to really have full control over the privacy and the security and that data protection of those meetings. Let's put one more document in here. Let's pop in, we can put in Excel files, PDFs, PowerPoints. We can also link directly into SharePoint as well. So let's pop in that presentation that Kevin was showing earlier on. Let's assign that one out to Kevin as well. What's really useful too is if you've got guest presenters, so for example, Olivia, who's not on the invite to this meeting right now, and she's not in the Teams channel, we just want her to come in and present the internal audit progress report. Olivia will now get an invite for 10 minutes starting at 8:10. So you don't need to send them the invite for the whole meeting. She will just get that 10-minute slot, and then she'll be able to join it. She'll come into the lobby in the Teams channel. She can be let in and then auto removed at the end of it, so she doesn't have access to the rest of the chat and the transcript and things like that. I suppose a final point that you might want to do before the meeting would be to add a decision. So, for example, let's say the decision is to sign off on the risk management update. So we can add that in before. We can write a description in here. And you have a few ways of signing off decisions within decisions. Okay, you can either vote. So if you work in quite a formal way, you have those board meetings where people need to vote and every member of the meeting needs to vote. You can set that up. So we're proposing a decision before the meeting and then people are voting on it and you can finalize it within the meeting. That's the first way. You can also have structured approvals, which is what I've got set up right now on this Teams channel. So what I've done here is I've said that one person needs to recommend the decision, which in this case is myself as the organizer of the meeting. I can then have Kevin to agree the decision, then Will needs to decide on it. And this is completely customizable. You can have more or less people, and we can propose this decision and then sign off, and save that decision. So that can be set up before the meeting. So what's great about this is people can come into the meeting prepared and they know there's going to be a vote on a decision that's been proposed, and then that can be voted on in the meeting. Okay, so let's imagine now that we have finished our agenda, we've added all of our pre-reads, all of our documents, we've proposed of all of our decisions, and we want to turn this into a board pack. So what we can do is go to the top right here and click on these three dots, and we can go to create meeting book. We call it a meeting book. You probably call it a board pack. We call it a meeting book because you could use this functionality for all types of meetings. We're going to hit save. And what this is going to do is it's now going to move us into Microsoft Word. It's just opening on my other screen here. I'll pull that across in a second. And it's going to take that agenda and all of those documents that we've added in and merge them all together. So from most universities that I speak to, they're normally doing this process using like Acrobat or something like that, often in quite a manual way, pulling together all of those pre-reads and documents. The great thing about this bit of functionality, and you can see here I've got the decisions add-in that's just loading up here in Microsoft Word. The great thing about this is that you can do this in your university colors, fonts, format, logo. So right now this is pulling through in the decisions standard formatting that we have, but most universities will want this done in their colors, formatting, fonts. So you don't even need to edit that in Word afterwards. So you can see how it's pulling in those documents. There's one document missing from this, and the keen-eyed amongst you will have noticed that it's the one that I restricted the access on. So obviously we're creating a PDF of the board pack, and we've got a restricted document in there that's not being pulled into the PDF. There'll be a link to that, and only the people who have got access will be able to actually follow that link and open that document separately. A question a lot of people ask at this point is, if I've got restricted access on documents in SharePoint folders already, does that translate through to decisions? So the answer to that is yeah, it does. So decisions will follow all of your privacy and all of your security, all of your policies that you've already got in Microsoft, and move that straight through into decisions. But here is my board pack. I can scroll down. I've got my agenda that I've created, been pulled in. We've got a table of contents. Again, this can all be done how you want it to look. So you see right now, for example, we've got agenda point number 1 is taking up a whole page. Most people don't want that. They want 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can format this how you want it to look. You just need to send us a template in Microsoft Word and we'll add that in. We've got our minutes here from the last meeting that's been pulled in, and then we scroll down. We can also jump through on the left here. So governors, trustees, SLT, very easy to navigate through this board pack here. If we go to number 4, we had a document added in here. This is the one that Kevin went through. Now, what's really useful at this point as well is you can annotate this document. So, for example, if I click on annotate here, I can circle this. I can highlight it. I can write some text on here. And this is the attendee's own personal board pack. So any annotations that they make, only they're able to view those. So you imagine a governor on the way to the board meeting, on the way to that committee meeting, is able to just open that up on their iPad. This will open up in their default browser. They don't need to download decisions. They can then securely open that link, look at their board pack, make their annotations, close it. When they get into that board meeting, they can then pull their iPad out and see all of their annotations in there.
One of the main questions we get often, Chris, on the board packs and things like that is, because it's boards and governance, there's a lot of external members to that. So how would that work then if there's an external member of the board who needs to view the board pack and annotate?
Yeah, so good question. As long as they are a member of the Teams channel, they're going to be able to have all the access that anybody else would, even if they're not using an internal university email login. So you've got 2 options. Ideally, they have that university login, right? That's probably best practice from a security privacy point of view. If they don't, and we're talking about trustees, governors, those kinds of people that are not full-time members of staff, if they have another email address that they want to use, you add that into the Teams channel. When they then get sent the board pack via a secure link, that link is placed into the Outlook calendar invite. If they click on it, it will ask them to log in. Microsoft single sign-on will come on, and they log in with the whatever credentials you've added into that Teams channel. They log in, and then they're able to view this board pack, and yet they can annotate it in exactly the same way. So let's just recap. So we have created our agenda, added all of our pre-reads, built our board pack, and we can now publish the agenda. I'm going to publish that. And what that's going to do, it's going to add the agenda and a link to the agenda into the Outlook calendar invite. So again, really easy. We want to make it as few clicks as possible for your attendees to view all of the documents. So all they need to do is just open up their Outlook calendar invite, click the link, and then they'll be able to view this agenda and open up the board pack. A question a lot of people ask is, if I edit the agenda and edit the board pack, what happens? How do you update people? So the board pack will update automatically. So if I added in, we had a last minute pre-read that came in, need to add it in, we can pop that in the agenda. I go and click update on the meeting book up here, and it will update everybody's meeting book. So really good for version control and making sure everybody has the most recent version. If you've made annotations, those annotations will stay unless you've made annotations on a document that's been removed from the agenda, in which case that's going to go because that document's no longer there. Fantastic. So 2 things to show you then before we run the minutes. The first one is the action tracking. So you see here, we call these tasks, same as actions. If I click on that, we've got this nice little dashboard that appears. Anybody at any point in the meeting can click on this and view, or before the meeting, after the meeting. These are all of the actions that have happened and have been attributed to the Audit and Risk Committee Teams channel. So you can see here I've had 180 in total late and new tasks. I've got a nice little dashboard that shows me we've got 373 completed actions. And I can filter this down. So maybe I want to look at what's due this coming week, or maybe closed in the last week. So when we review the previous minutes, we might also review the previous actions. We can screen share and we can show this. We can have a look at what's late, and we can tick these off in the meeting as well. Now, some people prefer to use Microsoft Planner. So we've got full integration here. So if I click on Planner, that has opened up here. Planner, and what this has done is it's created a plan board which has linked directly to our Teams channel here. So you can see these are all previous actions that I've had. Now, if I come in and I add an action manually, so let's call this university webinar action, I can assign a due date, I can assign, so let's give that one to Kevin. That's going into my audit and risk committee action log and save that. Now, if I go to planner here and open this up again, you see that what it's done is it's created what these are called buckets of actions in planner, and it's created a bucket for every meeting that I've had. So these are all my previous previous board meetings, and I can see here we've got university webinar action that's attributed to Kevin. Kevin will be able to see that in his planner. Some universities like to really use planner in the way that it's kind of designed for. So Kevin would sign off and say, yeah, I've done that action. Other people prefer to actually just use it in decisions. You can also export this action list into Excel too, and that will create an Excel list. Some people like to just have that. It's really useful for compliance, for auditing. If you're asked for all of the actions for your audit and risk committee, you can just export this straight into Excel and then send that out. This also links with to do in Outlook as well. So the idea here is you're not pinning people down on how they should track their actions. What you're doing is you're giving people the option. If people prefer planner, Excel, to do, decisions, but all of this syncs. So if you tick it off in to do, it will tick it off in planner. If you tick it off in planner, it will also check it off in Excel as well and in decisions. Probably the other action that you'll be taking during a meeting is decisions. So you will be logging decisions. So you can see here that this is the decision that I built into the agenda. So you can see here in the risk management update, we needed a decision to sign off on the risk management update. I was the recommender, so I can add my status and I can approve that. That will now go to Kevin. If this was voting, we could set this up so everyone in the meeting needs to vote. Maybe you create a new decision in the meeting. It might not have been a proposed decision before the meeting, but as you're talking and discussing, you make a new decision. So we can just click on new decision and we can add a new decision in here. We can propose that, we can vote on it, and we can log that in the meeting and save that. What a lot of universities like about this is this creates you a full decision list of all of the decisions that you have had in this Teams channel going back. And you can filter that on date range, status, is it proposed, is it final, voting in progress. We can tag these decisions. We can select which channel we want to look at and look at multiple different decision lists, and we can export this. So for example, you might take all of your committee meetings and turn that into one single decision list, which you export and send to somebody who's, if you're being audited or something like that.
We just have a question in the chat that might be worth asking as well, Chris. I've answered in the chat as well, but it was, can the actions be exported to third-party project management tools? So I've just kind of put in the chat there that they can be exported to Excel, and then using APIs or Power Automate, they can be exported to third-party apps. But the way the decision security model is that we only integrate with the Microsoft 365 tools. So that's to ensure everything remains secure within your own Microsoft environment.
Yeah, so definitely kind of a workaround, but yeah, as Kevin says, we only integrate with Microsoft, no other third-party tools. Okay, so we have generated our agenda, we've added our pre-reads, we've added guest presenters, we've restricted access, we're making sure people can only see what they need to see. We've run our meeting, we've had a couple of decisions made, they've been voted on, we've had a few actions that we've manually added. And now the meeting's over and we get to everybody's favorite part of a meeting, which is writing the minutes and the real time killer. So when the meeting finishes, you've got two options. We can either run a recap, which gives you a brief overview of the meeting that can be emailed out. So key takeaways, key action points, key decisions. Great for getting those actions sent out immediately that need to be worked on, and maybe the minutes come a day or two later. Right now, we're going to focus on the minutes. Okay. We had a lot of questions in the chat, I think, about the difference when JISC trialed decisions versus Copilot, and this is probably one of the biggest differences with Copilot. So with the minutes with decisions, you're able to create formal minutes. So what this is doing is it's taking our agenda, pulling it into Microsoft Word, and it's then adding in. It's taking the transcript from Microsoft Teams, merging that in, and then it's creating our minutes. Now, this is a fake audit and risk committee meeting that I've made. So I'm just going to upload my template in here. Sorry, my VTT file. You won't need to do this, okay? Because what this will do is it will pull the transcript automatically from Teams and link that into your meeting. Kevin touched on this at the start. There are a lot of AI recap tools out there where a bot joins your meeting, records it onto a third-party server, and that's how it then runs your minutes or your recap and sends it back to you, or you log into that portal to retrieve it. What we do is we take the transcription from inside Teams. You don't have to do a full video and audio recording. You can just start the transcript, and that's going to pull through. You can use the minutes whether the meeting was virtual, hybrid, or in person. Most committee meetings, board meetings are in person. It works in the same way. All that you need to do is in that meeting, have a laptop and start a transcription in Microsoft Teams. If there's more than 2 or 3 people around a table, we recommend having a conference speaker plugged in to make sure that you pick up the room properly. You'll also notice, excuse me, that with some AI recap tools like Copilot, often it doesn't identify different people speaking. So it just attributes all of the actions to the person who actually is logged into Teams and starting the transcription. If you select in person with decisions, it's going to understand that different people are speaking, so it won't do that. So it will attribute the actions to different people. What we can also do in this screen is we can copy and paste our notes in. So it's important to remember that this is not replacing the need for a minute taker. This is augmenting them with AI. So it means that if your minutes take you, let's say, 8 hours to write at the moment manually, hopefully Decisions is cutting that down to probably less than an hour. So you can upload your notes in. You don't need to do this, but it does strengthen the minutes that you get. We can also include all the open tasks as well. From this Teams channel. So we're not just logging the actions that were mentioned in this meeting. That's bad meeting practice. We want to be going back and taking all the actions from all the previous meetings if those actions are still open. And then we're going to hit generate meeting minutes. And this is now going to pull through our agenda, merge it in with our transcript, and it's going to write our minutes for us.
I think one of the key things you mentioned there, Chris, is the amount of time that it saves. There was a survey done in 2023 in England looking at the amount of time administration and governance are spending on meeting processes, and 26% of people had said that they were considering stepping down because the workload was too much, and that it was unmanageable because of all the different commitments that they had, but meetings being one of the biggest things that was taking time. So the idea here is to give people back as much time as possible, to do all the different administrative tasks and things that they have while still being able to do the meeting minutes.
Yeah, and I think sometimes a question is, okay, well, if we're going to reduce the amount of time that it takes to write the minutes for an administrator, what do we then do? And what we do see is that you're then able to actually offer more PA support to more people within the university. So maybe right now it's your top level governance committee meetings that have PA support. Because those PAs are much more efficient in how long it takes them to prepare their board packs and write their minutes, you can then actually offer support to maybe the next rung down of management that wouldn't have had it before. So we've got our minutes draft. This is our first draft here. What we can then do is describe what you want to change. So we might say rewrite, let's say, and don't use full names, use titles, or we might say use initials. We can really be as kind of detailed as we want in these changes. So you might say increase the amount of information on agenda point number 3, halve the amount of information on agenda point number 5. You might say there was a lot of financial information that was mentioned on agenda point 6. Can you bullet point that? Can you bullet point any challenges raised? And can you bullet point any answers? So whatever you want to do, you can ask decisions to rewrite it. Probably typically what I hear is that the first time that the minutes come out, it's about 70 to 80% right. You describe what you want it to change, you put in those prompts, and you probably get it to about 90%. You then press next, and this can be exported into either OneNote or Word. Let's use Word in this example. And we're now going to be in a Word document that we can put our finishing touches to and take it from that 90% finished to 100% ready to send out. Again, like the board pack, you're able to have these minutes created in your university fonts, colors, formatted how you want it to look. Your logo in there doesn't need to look like this. You could have this in boxes. You could have a column for initials, however you want that to look. Send us that Word doc and we can upload it in. But this can now be edited like any other Word document. We can then send this for review. So quite often minutes need to be reviewed. So I could send these to Kevin. I could add some comments and say, Kevin, can you review this and sign them off? We can then finalize it. We have electronic signature that can be built into this process as well. So once it's been reviewed, accepted, sent back, we can finalize, and that will create a PDF. And what that's doing is it's locking the meeting and creating a PDF of these minutes. You can then set up, based on your SLA as a university, how long you want the Word document to be accessible before that gets deleted. And the point of this really is just to meet compliance and make sure that you lock the meeting, and any decisions and minutes and everything like that is all there, and you've created that audit trail that then can't be edited. So once you create that PDF, it locks it, and then you can send out that PDF directly from this page as well as a secure link, or you could export that PDF if it's a public document and share that if you like.
One of the nice things about this as well, on the meeting minute side of things, is because we had a guest presenter in there as well, which was Olivia. You can actually just send the agenda item for Olivia rather than sending the whole meeting minute. So if there's anything that is confidential across those meeting minutes, you can just share across what's relevant to her.
Fantastic. So that was a bit of a whistle stop tour. Hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavor and shows you kind of why JISC started using decisions. So we're going to jump into the Q&A now. So I know we've had quite a few questions in the chat that we've answered as we've been going through, but if you've got any more questions, then feel free to use the chat or the... Nobody ever uses the official Q&A, do they, Kevin? I've noticed that.
No, it's always a chat, yeah.
It's way too intimidating.
I think so. While we are just waiting for maybe a couple of questions to come in, you might have seen I just put in something into the chat there, which is just something that we have found definitely rings true for the education industry that we're working with at the minute. And it is really just about the amount of workload that comes from meeting minutes. So this was an NGA, 2 different NGA surveys, 2023 and 2024, and some of the kind of key findings from it. Like I mentioned before, 1 in 4 governors or trustees were considered resigning because of the workload. That chairs were spending more than 21 hours per month just working on governance. So, effectively 3 working days per month just on this. Non-chairs still averaging 16 hours a month, all their voluntary time working on meetings. And that, again, 1 in 4 effectively are saying that the role has become unmanageable because of the amount of workload. And meetings are definitely one of the key parts of that, with the amount of time that it takes around building agendas, chasing people for documents and different things that you might need to get into the agendas. And then obviously the big one is the meeting minutes. So we're quite proud to say that we help with a lot of that and try and really reduce the workload across the industry. definitely, guys, keep the questions coming. It's been really good so far with the amount of questions. So hope to see some more coming in.
I
One
think
thing, Chris, that you had mentioned with working kind of so closely with GISC. So Chris is the person who works with GISC and helping them to get it set up and things like that. But based off kind of some of that feedback that we've seen, the amount of time taken in meeting minutes, what's their response been and how they've been using decisions?
yeah, so it's interesting because JISC, hopefully everybody on the call knows who JISC are. They are really the leading body within the UK that advise FE and HE on technology. They were kind of born out of Bath University, and they've grown to a point now where they're definitely seen as one of the top advisors when it comes to technology adoption. What's interesting is they were looking at it from 2 points of view. The first one, as an institution, how might you use decisions? But then secondly, how would they use it internally? Now, of course, they are very different to a university. They use decisions more for lower level meetings. So a lot of one-to-ones, a lot of team meetings. They really love the action tracking and how that links to planner. So it's really, they have a lot of projects where they will work with an institution and they want to drive actions and drive forward that project. So that's kind of how they use decisions. But you'll notice the in the case study there that James, the deputy IT director, mentioned about how useful it would be for universities. I think we're featured on their AI blog, and we're kind of working with them at the moment to potentially maybe formalize more of a partnership through the JISC framework. Happy to organize a call if you wanted to have a separate call on that and kind of understand a little bit more about that in detail, then happy to do so.
We also had a really great question in the Q&A. So I'll read it word for word because I really like it. You guys seem way ahead of where Copilot is in this area. And then what are the chances that Microsoft might acquire your product and incorporate it into Copilot?
It's way above our pay grades, Kev.
Well, to give you guys some context on this, the reason that decisions on the first part of that is ahead of Copilot in this is because, as Chris mentioned before, is that we are vertical AI. We only look at meetings, and everything that we do is focused around meetings. Copilot is an amazing tool that sits across everything, and it's brilliant for Excel. It's brilliant for Word. Really great tool, and we do use it ourselves for different parts of the business. But for meetings, it just isn't quite there. To answer your question on whether Microsoft might acquire your product, like Chris says, that's not something that we would be privy to. However, I do know that our CEO, works closely with Microsoft. We are partnered with Microsoft, but he's got his own very specific mission where he's only focused on meeting minutes. It is not something that we've ever heard. But of course, that is not something that we would be making any decisions on. But in the meantime, we're only focused on how we can partner with Microsoft, how we integrate with Microsoft, not really thinking about acquisitions or anything like that.
Got another question coming in the chat. We're kind of heading towards the end of the session now, guys, but if you would like to organize and feel free to put that in, but if you'd like to organize a kind of a one-to-one walkthrough, then we're happy to organize that. If you've got more questions or you want maybe a bit more of a kind of consultation within you for how you might use it in your university, that's absolutely fine.
We have a question just came in there, Chris, about does decisions integrate with Loop and Teams messages for agendas?
So we don't integrate with Loop directly. So it's a bit of a duplication there with what Loop does. And with Teams messages, that's a good question. So when you are building an agenda, you do have the ability to be able to use different sources for that. I don't think Teams messages is pulled through into the recap.
Actually,
into the agenda.
just more recently, it actually can be, especially if it's in the channels. So you can actually click on a message and choose to have that as a suggested agenda item. That is actually quite a new feature.
There you go.
Chris, so sorry,
I'm glad I came to the webinar.
Exactly, learning something new. So yeah, you can choose to have a message or something in a channel or in a private message as a suggested agenda item or saved as an agenda item.
There you go.
I see there's another question coming in. We'll certainly hang on, guys, as long as there's questions coming in. I know we've got a couple of minutes left in the time, so keep them coming. There's a couple of people typing now. It's good to see. That's a good thing about the chat, Chris, is we can see there's people messaging in.
What's the best way, Kevin, if anyone wants to book a meeting and get like a kind of a one-to-one with us, what do you think is the best way to do that?
So after this meeting, we are going to send out the recording, and we'll also follow up then with a link that you can book a meeting directly in. It will just be really simple. Book a 30-minute call or an hour call with us, and we'll be able to walk you through more specific to your own use cases and things like that. Okay, I think a good few people are jumping out just now. So we'll probably call it there. We will send you guys a recording after this, but yeah, thanks very much. It's really interactive today, and we appreciate all the questions coming in. So we're really looking forward to meeting you all one-to-one and walking you through a bit more of what Decisions can do for your own organizations.
Thanks very much, guys.
Cheers, folks.